So we had three breakout questions on the table. First of which being, what was the thesis of the speech? Two, what makes Malcolm feel so at home in Ghana? And then finally, why does Malcolm consider Ghana to be the most progressive nation in Africa? Who would like to share what was discussed in your breakout groups?
We discussed, I guess, the differences between how Malcolm X felt in Ghana and how he felt in America. In America, he felt like he wasn't there by choice. He was forcibly dragged there, and he didn't even feel like a visitor, despite America preaching that it's a land of the free. Malcolm X pointed out that it's never that. The black man always comes second. And when he was in Ghana, he felt like he was more than a visitor. He felt like he was a family member coming home. And they brought they accepted him with open arms, straight up. That's how it was. And um then we also discussed why he believes Ghana was more progressive. Not only is the president, and please correct me if I say his name wrong, Nkrumah. Is
Nkrumah?
that how you, Nkrumah? Yeah, Nkrumah, more progressive because he's for the people. He actually is attempting to fix the black people's image and better present them, and he's actually fighting for freedom. Another thing that we discussed too, and it was kind of more of a point that I brought up was anytime any prominent black figure or black icon is doing something progressive for African Americans or leading a major movement that could have a major effect on what's going on, America will often downplay them and their actions and attempt to defame them as a way to dismantle the movement and not let others see what the real message often is. More often, trying to, yeah, just dismantle it really. And it's only because of who they are and the color of their skin that they're going to do that, because they want to continue to control black people.
Perfect. Thank you, Anthony. Anyone else want to share either what they felt the thesis was, or even what makes Malcolm feel at home in Ghana? Go ahead, Dulce. I'm sorry.
Um, so with my in the breakout room, we were talking about how Malcolm was kind of like saying the thesis was showing what really America is and what really Africa is. And you know, Americans tend to have this image of Africa like, oh yeah, there's a lot of poverty, people don't have anything over there, there's no liberty, nothing. And then American, it's like, oh yeah, we have here freedom, we have everything, like for people to growth and everything. But in reality, America is just preaching about it, and then Africans, they really like do it. Like if they say they have liberty over there, and that's why they have like a more progressive government and society, because they I kind of say like their government gives them the liberty to do it. And over here, even though the government says that, it doesn't happen.
Perfect. Thank you, Dulce. Very good call out. Anyone want to speak to either again why he feels more at home, or we can start to talk about why Ghana is a more progressive nation? So again, why did he feel that Ghana was the most progressive nation in Africa?
So I think that the reason why he felt at home, because he knew that America, number one, did not accept the black people as still human beings, still wanted to see them as being oppressive, the Americans. And the reason why he, I believe, part of the thesis was that he wanted to show the African people there, the Guanan people, that like him, there was other 2 point some million people there, Black people who did not know, who was forcibly came there with chains and bondage and did not know how to get back, or that he was an example of them, and he wanted to be accepted uh, by the African people. And the one that was left over there still was, some of them was wanting to come home and some of them was brainwashed to American thinking, but yet they was lost, and yet he wanted to establish that I've come home after 400 years.
Okay, thank you. So what I would like to do with the lecture today is kind of provide somewhat of a context and a background as to who Malcolm X was, and in attempts to kind of inform a little bit more why he has these positions as being non-American and his personal experience, right? And also kind of attach it to what we've been talking about thus far, and then kind of go from there. And then I'll try to weave in my experience when I went to Ghana also. But Malcolm Little, or commonly known as Malcolm X, or El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz. Malcolm Little was born to a father who was a follower of the Marcus Garvey movement. So remember, when we're talking about last week's lecture, we're talking about Marcus Garvey being able to build the largest movement of African people within America. Malcolm X's father was part of that movement. I believe Earl Little was his name, was part of that movement. Due to this, right, Malcolm initially had somewhat of a middle-class upbringing, initially. Now, I believe when they relocated to Nebraska and he was doing his Garvey work, right, spreading the message and the news of Marcus Garvey, he was murdered. In fact, he was hit in the back of the head and laid across the train tracks. And because of them being middle class, right, they had the capacity to fill out a life insurance policy for the father. Now, unfortunately, due to the powers that be, the insurance company never cashed out on the life insurance policy, claiming that Malcolm X's father committed suicide. So think about this. Like, we know now there's things like forensics, but I don't want to say in this time, right? Let's just call it what it is. Due to the anti-Black sentiments, they said that he committed suicide. So again, I told you, right? He hit himself in they're saying that he hit himself in the back of the head, walked to the train tracks and laid himself out, right? That not only does not make sense, but it's just like physically impossible, right? But this is what was used to deny his mother the insurance policy. So, of course, the father is the main breadwinner. I want to say he has about 6 or 7 siblings, so it's a very large household, and they don't have the capacity to maintain themselves financially. So when you have not, you go get, right? So they begin to, what you call steal, to feed the family, right? Due to this, there was state intervention and Malcolm was taken out of the home and put into foster care. Now, this becomes significant because that fact of them removing the children from the home drove Malcolm's mother into the insane asylum, right? So you have his dad murdered his mom now in the insane asylum, and he's into the foster care system. So this is like his childhood, okay? Fast forward, he comes out of the foster care system, lives with his sister in Boston. Just kind of give you the quick story, right? He kind of gets caught up in the Boston underworld. And what he would do is, like, little petty crimes, selling weed here or there. But he got a job working the railroads, and he was able to transition into Harlem. And when he got into Harlem, he never went back to Boston, right? And he began to establish a life there. where he became known as he was called Detroit Red, right? This is another moniker that he takes on. As Detroit Red, he is a major player in the Harlem jazz scene in the Harlem underworld. Um, all the major jazz players who smoke weed got their weed from Malcolm X. For those who you're too old to know this, but Red Fox, right, is a comedian in the early 60s, late 60s, early 70s. Red Fox was a friend of Malcolm X, right, during his time in Harlem. They were running buddies, right? Malcolm X was great friends with Billie Holiday. So he was central into this Harlem night scene. Through his life of crime, right? He gets involved into theft, robbery, pimping, all of it, right? Lands up in jail. Through jail, he's politicized and introduced to the Nation of Islam, which is a Islamic Black nationalist sect within the United States, who believe in complete separation from white society. So the notion that Black folks should have about 8 or 7 states in the South, they should be autonomous states, and they should be able to operate and run those states without white interference. This is the belief system of the Nation of Islam. Rises very quickly through the ranks of the Nation of Islam, becomes the prime spokesman for the Nation of Islam. Due to his popularity, due to his ability to be the spokesman, as people do, he starts getting hated on, right? And some of the people within the Nation of Islam start to have a disdain towards him. Now, remember what I told you all about COINTELPRO and the CIA's ability to cause divisions once they see cracks in an organization. This takes place with Malcolm also. Eventually, he's defected from the Nation of Islam for making negative or disparaging remarks about the assassination of John F. Kennedy. He was told not to speak on it. He was asked about the assassination in an interview, to which he responds in effect, is a circumstance of the chickens coming home to roost, right? You can't go across the world and sow violence and destruction and not expect violence and destruction to come back on you. It's chickens coming home to roost. So that got him booted out of the Nation of Islam. And while he was away from the Nation of Islam, he was able to take his Hajj, or his pilgrimage, back to Mecca, as well as travel throughout Africa, right? And his travels throughout Africa upon leaving the Nation of Islam is where we pick up on this speech. Now, keep in mind, right, that the background that he has of his personal experiences, right? Father killed, mother thrown into the insane asylum. All of the racism, all of the anti-Blackness that I didn't even mention that he goes through in the foster care system, right? Being incarcerated, right? And then being indoctrinated and politicized in an organization that points out the fact, right? Like this is one of the theologies of the Nation of Islam. Due to the circumstances that the European has put Africans in, they're devils. This is what they believe. Not like a devil, but the actual devil is part of this belief system of the Nation of Islam. And for Malcolm, when he looks back in his experience don't disagree with that, right? So these are some of the things that kind of embody his experiences to give him the position that he takes. So when you hear him say, I'm not an American, right? Like, don't only use the information that we've came across so far in the semester, which you should use, right? But also understand these are the circumstances that he lived through. Think about that. Your life is good, right? Everything is cool. You got your moms, you got your pops in the house, right? Money is coming in, everybody's eating. And then your pops is murdered, not dies from natural causes or nothing like that. He's murdered because he's preaching the idea that Black folks should do for themselves. You see this happening, right? You see the Ku Klux Klan throw bombs into your home. You see this happening, right? So you live through that. Now you're put in a circumstance to where you actually have to steal to make sure that you have dinner for the night. Because of that, right? And due to this, now my mom has been removed from the home and I'm in foster care. At the age of like 10, right? So put that into consideration when you hear his analysis. Of course he's not an American. Everything that he's experienced in America has been dreadful. Why would you ascribe to that? And then what I don't mention about the Nation of Islam, right? They have an uncanny ability to take people who are hooked on drugs, who have been incarcerated, who have lived a life of crime, right? And change them around and refigure them in a way that they're respectable, that they have a purpose, that they will do for themselves, right? So you're seeing these things. Shit, you have been impacted by that. You have been changed in that fashion, right? So why would I attach myself to something that has been so harmful? And then so think about all of the stereotypical information that we've learned so far in this semester as it pertains to African people. And then to go to Africa and see the direct opposite. To go to Africa and know that what the desire for what the state wants of you when you go to Africa is to continue the stereotype, right? To continue to proliferate the substandard nature of African living and uplift this notion that America is great. He's like, nah, Brian, I ain't gonna do that. I'm gonna tell the truth of what this is. I don't feel welcome in my so-called home. I'm not respected. I'm viewed as a second-class citizen, a colonial subject, right? Where I come from, the people who look like me aren't like directing and running shit. We're subjugated. But when I come here, all you see is black faces in positions of power everywhere. And I have to tell you, that shit is profoundly liberating. Like I seen it. I was able to get off the plane, touch down in Accra, and see nothing but black faces. I mean, it's like the Atlanta airport, but like on 20, right? Like black folks everywhere. Once I kind of came out of the bewilderment of seeing all these black folks, the next thing I recognized was the police. And in Africa, it's not like we got a Glock out here. Nah, they carry like AK-47s and these big ass like batons that drag on the floor, right? That's how big these motherfuckers is. So naturally, being from the States, and you know the relationship with police and black folks in the States, I got nervous because they're making a beeline towards me. And I'm like, fuck, you know what I'm saying? I'm checking pockets and shit, making sure I have no contraband on me, making sure shit's cool because they're coming towards me. And what they say when they walk up to me, welcome home, brother. Give me a pound. So when you talk about like not feeling like a visitor, this is what he means. And as I move throughout Accra, as I move throughout Cape Coast, and I meet the people from Ghana, what they keep telling me is, welcome home. We've been waiting for you. Our long lost child has returned. In fact, they have ceremonies to welcome us back home. This is not Malcolm talking. This is my firsthand experience. This is what I saw, right? And so when he talks about this individual named Kwame Nkrumah, he was the first African president to throw away colonial powers. He kicked Britain out of what was called the Gold Coast and made this place Ghana. But what he noticed, what he demanded, he said, look, Ghana's liberation means nothing unless the rest of Africa and all African people are free. So like Garvey, he was under this notion of Africa for the Africans at home and abroad. So this notion runs through the veins of the Ghanaian people. So it's not surprising that when folks from the diaspora come back home, their response is, welcome home. Because the whole thrust of the country's development is to be liberated, unified, and bringing Africans from all over the world back home, or giving a space for them, I should say, right? One of the only places in Africa where you get what's called dual citizenship. So I could be a citizen of the United States and a citizen of Ghana. This is the forward thinking of Kwame Nkrumah. Malcolm X talks about his ability to change the perception of the African, to give them something to be proud of, right? So this is directly from the mind of Marcus Garvey. This is what Marcus Garvey sought to do, to change the way that we are viewed through how we present ourselves. What Kwame Nkrumah was able to do was to manifest that, to make that real, right? And not only did he do it from a political standpoint, he gave us land. And what also happened when Ghana was liberated, he invited Africans from the Americas to come out and help establish the country. W.E.B. Du Bois died in Ghana working on the Encyclopedia Africana. So again, he is inviting Maya Angelou spent time out there, right? So this is really what Malcolm is seeing while he's abroad in Africa. And he's like, yo, this is vastly different from what we got cracking over here in America. In fact, y'all, America's some bullshit. Let me just tell you, like where you're at is cracking. I don't know what going on over there, right? And I would argue that the same is true today. I'm not saying this without problems. I'm not saying this without difficulty, but I'm saying this. I would argue that their quality of living is better. I seen poverty, call it what it is, right? But I didn't see poor people. I didn't. I saw no homelessness, no homeless. Everyone was housed. Everyone was housed. Go downtown LA and tell me otherwise. Let's talk about it, right? Don't we have a homelessness crisis in this country? But in Africa, everyone had homes. And more importantly, even the people who we would consider poor, they have their dignity. They have their humanity. They have their sense of self. This woman invited me into her home to show me her house. And I mean, it's what you would call like a shanty, right? Like it's not much. But why I bring this up is because the pride that she spoke with as she showed me around her house, how immaculate everything was. Now, she doesn't even have like a cement floor. She has a dirt floor, but the house was spotless. It was in order, right? So to me, she has a sense of pride about her dwelling. So much so, she wanted me to come see this shit, right? So this is what I'm saying. Like, they still have their dignity. They still have their sense of self. They still have their sense of pride. Folks who have housing insecurity out here, how do we treat them? How do they feel about themselves? They're treated inhumane. So when you think about this question of being progressive or being primitive or being third world, I think if you travel, all those things kind of get complicated because the streets were cleaner than what was out here. I'm just being real with y'all. Like, this is from what I seen. You know what I'm saying? And for the Black folks in the room, it may not be Ghana, right? But you need to go to a place at least once to where it's nothing but Black folks. You should experience that once in your lifetime. I swear to God, it felt like 200 pounds was lifted off my chest. No such thing as microaggressions. No such thing as people following you around the store because they think you're gonna steal some shit. That whole that baseless suspicion that we have moving through spaces here ain't a thing because it's all us. Even if it's Jamaica, it's like check out a space to where it's a predominantly Black space. Especially us in California, we don't get it like that much. August, you all right, bro? You are dying over there, homie. You need to get a cup of coffee or something. You had your hair rolling back and shit. I was like, this motherfucker, wow, you all right? Look, so we're gonna slide into Fishbowl. Twice per semester, one time to pass. You can talk about the lecture, you can talk about the journal, anything you found of interest in the speech. I'll take volunteers, and if not, I'll start calling on people. All right. Josh, we'll start with you. Any other volunteers? Anthony, I believe Anthony, you're done for the semester after this one. Tatiana, have you went? This is your second time also? Okay. And then one more. If not, I'll call on somebody at random.
I will go.
Okay, and Dulce. Dulce, this is your second time also, right?
No, this is the first
First
time.
time? Okay. All right, we'll start with you, Tatiana, Anthony, and then Dulce.
Kind of just to touch base off of how you said like we should all like go somewhere where it's just Blacks. I went to Jamaica last spring break with my mom, and I loved it. It was a little different because they thought I was kind of weird since I was my mom. She looks Mexican, so but it is really different. Like you could tell, like just like being there, like it's just more chill. Like nobody's really like looking at you a certain way, especially like being a tourist. Like they're always looking at you like in a certain way. But for like me, like it was chill the whole time. Like everybody was acting like they're my homies. Like so I see what you're saying. Like it's just so different just being there, like walking around, literally minding your business is literally minding your business. Like you're just chilling. And it's just a whole different, you could like feel the energy, like it just feels so different and you feel like it's where you need to be. Like you don't feel out of place or like a tourist. Like you feel like you're at home because like even they talk to you different. Like that's your friend, like you've known them your whole life. And so I just wanted to say like I get what you're saying, like how it could feel like the energy is just so different when you're in an environment like that.
Yep. Thank you. Anthony.
I think it's very interesting to hear about the differences, whether like any place in Africa and in America, just like the completely different treatment in a sense. Like that. I think one thing that like really kind of opened my eyes a bit was hearing about how one you're immediately welcomed as like welcome home again kind of thing, and just the general issues that Black people tend to face in America, like that baseless suspicion or being followed because someone thinks you're doing X and Y, or just people being suspicious of you at all for anything really. And I think it is one, it's wild to hear the differences, right? Because one, it like that should never really do exist to begin with. Like you guys shouldn't have to really be living in constant fear and have that heavy weight on your chest about anything, right? And hearing about it kind of opened my eyes a bit as someone who's not very well educated in a lot of this, as just some random Mexican kid in society, right? Um and I just think it's interesting, and I mean, if anything, I would like to hear more about your experience of when you visited. That's something I definitely am interested in.
For sure. It'll be sprinkled throughout the semester. Dulce?
So what I wanted to talk about is something at the end of the text that I was reading. And it says that that when the were here, they were oppressing people, and why the white people wanted to fight that oppression, and they with this idea of liberty or death, and they were saying that, you know, like, yeah, we're fighting because of our rights, we're fighting because we want freedom, and we're tired of this oppression. And so these people were seen as heroes. And whenever like Black people want to fight for their rights, want to have the liberty to live in their country and their home because they were born here, but they don't feel like they're treated as a second class citizens. So whenever they want to fight for their rights, they're seen as criminals or terrorists. So that's something that it really got my attention because of how I think the right word is hypocrite um and is. And yeah, like how when white people want to fight for their rights, they're seen as heroes, but whenever like a minority groups want, especially Black people, want to fight for their rights, they just seem like as criminals.
Yeah, that's a really good call out. And I think that's something that's consistent throughout the Black radical tradition, in the sense of pointing out the enormous hypocrisy in American liberatory thought, right? Give me liberty or give me death. One of the founding fathers said that shit, right? No taxation without representation, right? Like these are the claims that were espoused to start America, right? No taxation without representation. Like that's a bold claim, right? Like let's think about that. I don't know for y'all who started work yet, but when you start work and you start to see how these taxes work, you're gonna be mad at a motherfucker, right? Like you get check and half your shit gone, the taxes, right? But then this notion of representation. Representation. Let's tease that out, okay? So we talked about, I believe we talked about George Floyd in this class, right? Where Derek Chauvin stood on his neck for 8 minutes, right? And what happens when these police officers, these murderers, right, when they get their job being removed or they have to go on like leave for these type of acts, but they still get paid for their leave, right? Who pays for that? Who pays for that? Yep. Say that, Tatiana, please say that out loud so everyone else hears you.
We do with our tax dollars, right?
Absolutely. So again, let's think about what the claim was to start America. No taxation without representation. So my tax dollars should represent my interests, right? This is what they're saying. Y'all with me? But where we're having placed into a position to where not only do the tax dollars not represent my interests, they're funding my oppression. They're funding the murder of my people. So under their own logical ways of going about liberty, we have the right to defect. But ask Wesley Snipes how well he went trying to evade his taxes. So to Dulce's point, right? These are the enormous contradictions and the glaring hypocrisy within this country. And then you tell me this is the home of the free, land of the brave. Get the fuck out of here. Talk back to me. What you thinking? Mark, what you thinking, what you feeling?
So I just kind of want to like agree with what you're saying. I feel like it's kind of like there, I guess the word I want to use is kind of like brainwashing.
Okay.
I think like they build like certain like connotations on like what's like, oh, let's say like wealth or like liberty, or like kind of like controlling like the perspective of people. So like they can like be easier like controlled. Like and like I guess that's like why Malcolm like felt more at home at Ghana, because like there's actually like wealth there is like different from like wealth here. Like they see wealth more as like like the resources rather than like money or like consumerism or like the things that you consume.
Call out.
Hold up.
Brian.
Brian, we should.
I just have to say is there's something that we have to remember about what you said about the taxes, about where is it going, who is it profiting, and so when it comes to the incident of of George Floyd and the whole explanation of what you said about it, it's just we have to always remember that sometimes there's a person who's benefiting it in a good way, and there's other people who are benefiting in a bad way. So that's all I gotta say.
Anthony Enriquez, what you thinking?
In my opinion, I just think it's like it's funny how the idea that America could kind of promote themselves as like the land of the free, where you could to come in and do whatever you want, but like it's almost like false advertising, where
Hmm.
it's like certain people could be free, certain people can, have this American dream, and I think I mentioned in the article as well, where it's kind of why Malcolm X didn't feel at home is that his idea of American dream there at the time. I think that's just interesting how, you could have this false idea of a place, or like you could have expectations about a place. You go there and then you realize that, it's all like not as true as you thought it would be.
I do want to throw out there, I think I'll be remiss if I don't bring this up while we're dealing with Malcolm. And this is one of the main things that he wanted to do before he was assassinated. He wanted to take the United States to the United Nations for human rights violations against African people, right? And so like this is such like a profoundly brilliant move, right? Because why would you continue to go to the people who are doing the crimes against you to seek justice? Of course, they're not going to give you justice. They're the ones doing the crime, right? So the idea is to go against the higher authority to get your support. So think about how the world rallied around the war was happening in Ukraine, right? This is seen as a human rights violation. Russia engaged in human rights violations against the Ukrainian people, right? So in Malcolm's standpoint, the experiences that African people have gone through within America qualify as human rights violations. Absolutely. Think about this. Actually, question. Name for me civil rights. What are some of your civil rights? What are some civil rights? Rights that you have granted to you as citizens. What are your civil rights?
To vote,
Right to vote. Thank you. What else?
the right to a free trial, a fair trial. I mean, a fair
Right
trial.
to fair
Uh,
trial. Help them out. Anyone else? Civil rights.
right to privacy.
Privacy. Okay.
Public education.
Yes, absolutely. Right to public education. Yes. So these are things that are your civil rights. What is a human right? Name for me some human rights.
One of them is a life to live. Yeah.
The ability to live, the ability to breathe. I would argue access to safe food and safe water. I would argue access to housing, right? But operating within a capitalist society, that gets complicated. But back to Dulce's point, the ability to live. So I'm gonna ask you another question. I'm not asking you about like the organization or the politics of the organization. I'm asking you about the term Black Lives Matter. The term Black Lives Matter, what does that mean?
Freedom to assemble.
Black Lives Matter means freedom to assemble. You sleepy, bro.
Pretty much like the lives of Black people are important, which is also implying that the lives of Black people weren't important because we have to make the movement.
Perfect, right? You get me? So the idea to have to say that Black Lives Matter stems from the fact we exist in a society that Black life does not matter. So by default, by orality, by your claims, Black Lives Matter as an organization and a movement is dealing with a human rights issue. Does this make sense to you? But they are going about the movement, the practices of the movement, they are attached to more civil rights practices because they're still going to the offender for justice for the offense. Make sense? So this is the political astuteness of Malcolm X. That's not going to work, right? The UN should operate as a higher authority. So if they operate as a higher authority, they should be able to intervene and assure that we have human rights. Henceforth, the way that Ukraine has been supported for their loss of human rights, the idea is Black folks globally really should be able to have the same type of support for their human rights. Jose, what you thinking? Jose, what you
What
thinking?
happened?
What are you thinking?
I was thinking. My thing was cutting off, so I couldn't really hear. Cause my volume on the micro was down.
Okay. So out of anything that you heard today, what are you thinking? What do you think about the reading material? You do that too.
Oh, it interested me how, but the reading material, Malcolm X one was how he was welcome to Ghana more than he was here.
That's it.
Oh, also about like how you said about in the lecture, but about trying to I forgot who was it that said earlier about something about like, going to like a different area full of like Black people. I think like to see like different environment from them.
Okay. Okay. You pulled that one out your ass, but I'll take it. Um, Jasmine, what you think about? You on mute.
So what you said when you went back to Ghana, went back to Ghana, or okay, when you felt like at home. Um, I kind of felt like the same experience because I think in January I went back to Cambodia because I'm Cambodian. And yeah, it's really different, like the vibes, the energy. I really like the people there. They were really nice and open. And then yeah, it just changes your perspective a little when you like leave the United States and you see like different parts of the world outside of like your own bubble and what you were like used to before.
Yeah, it's vitally important. And I know that unfortunately, right, the capacity to travel is tied up in economics, right? But it's so vastly important to try to travel as much as possible, right? Just because it vastly shapes the way that you look at the world. And you're just not so I believe who said this? Mark, you're not so easily to be brainwashed, right? Because you have something to compare this reality to, you know. And when you hear things about other places, you're like, that don't sound right because, you know, I visited and I know otherwise, right? So this is vastly important. We'll call it a day. Let me see real quick what we have for next week. 'Cause I think we'd be off a little bit. Um, You know what? I don't want to do that yet. So what I'll do is I will post something, some material for us to talk about on Monday. And I'll make an announcement. So that way you'll know what that is. Give me till the end of day, let's say Saturday. That way you'll have a few days to get to the reading or the material, whatever that material may be. But I'll also post it on Canvas so that way you'll have access to it. Are there